Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, as he does every other Friday at this time, Tom Walls of the Firearms Academy of Seattle. Tom, thanks for coming along for the ride today, man.
Good to see you, Paul.
And just inside baseball information, we have spent the last 10 minutes in a panicked rush trying to get everything working together, and I think we got it. So we'll see.
Thanks for saying we worked. I'm a Luddite. You did all the traditional heavy lifting that you always do.
Well, and honestly, the problem we had was on my end. So
I wasn't going to drop a dime on you.
Yeah. All right, it's cool. But I want to mention, as I usually.
Paul, you need to calm down.
Tell that to the lovely Diane. See how well that works for you.
The lovely Diane is out washing her car today. We have, check it out. See the background, folks. I didn't pull the curtain. We have this thing, I believe it's called sunshine here in the Pacific Northwest, and it's 80 degrees. 3 or 4 days ago, it was like in the high 40s and damp. So we're doing happy dance out here. You cannot possibly put me in a bad mood.
Aha. All right, and I've got social media hooked up, so I need to remind everybody, if you are watching on the Facebook or YouTube pages for Polite Society Podcast, you can comment on those pages. We'll get your comments. We'll get them up on the air. We'll discuss them as long as you're discussing what we are discussing. And I want to mention real fast, although I do not have details in front of me, I want to mention real fast that we do have word from SAF that there has been an injunction won in Illinois. The federal court that we have there did side with SAF, and it looks like that the injunction has been granted. More about that tomorrow when we do the weekend edition of the Bullet at 7 p.m. Central Time. Believe me, we'll be going deep into that. One of the guests tomorrow is Alex Uli, who is, of course, an attorney and our legal guy, so we'll be digging deep into that.
That's especially relevant to us here in Washington State, because I use the word governor because this is a family show. Our governor did sign into law just last Tuesday with an emergency clause that made it effective last Tuesday, an almost identical law to what Illinois is fighting now. So that gives us some hope on this end of the world.
And I will say this, within the same hour as he signed that, the lawsuit was filed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I lost count after about 5.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's just a wonderful thing to see.
So let me see here. And here's another state where, let me get a comment up here real quick. Another state where they should take heart from this. Whoops. There we go. Robert says, greetings from behind enemy lines in the People's Republic, or the Democratic People's Republic of New Jersey. New Jersey has similar laws, and they will be going away as well. So, Tom, we've got, 26 and a half minutes left, and we're going to use every bit of that and then some, I'm thinking, for our topic today. And are we calling it the OODA loop or the OODA loop?
My best understanding is that Colonel John Boyd, who put this thing together, hated the term OODA. So until I am corrected, I'm going to respect the man and call it OODA. You do whatever you choose. He's not here to correct either of us. So.
Well, and with all due respect to the Colonel, I'm a broadcaster. If you can shorten it, you shorten it. And
never held that again.
OODA or OODA, which goes by faster. So
the loop.
Yes, the loop.
For the 3 people in the world in the gunfighting self-defense community that don't know what that is, OODA is an acronym for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. And it's essentially a decision-making process so you can make decisions and then act faster than your opponent. And the background of this is worth getting into. First off, let me say I'm not an expert on this. I've done a substantial amount of reading, and it just proves that I know less and less of it. I'm at the part of the Dunning-Kruger that says, oh, there's more to this than I thought. That said, Colonel John Boyd, United States Air Force, Korean War, he was a fighter pilot flying F-86s against the North Korean/Russian MiG-15s. And he was good. His people racked up a wonderful kill ratio, like 15-1, because he could out-dogfight people, and he did this making decisions faster. So the OODA loop is a decision-making process, and most people think of it, at least when you start as linear, you observe what's going on, you see what's going on, you orient, you not only physically orient yourself, but you look at your experience and your visual mental database of what that is that you just observed. You decide upon a course of action, and then you act. It's not linear. It's called the OODA loop because it's a constant feedback.
Yeah.
You're always getting new information, and you go back. The idea is to make decisions faster and more efficiently than your opponent. He got to the point where his nickname was 42nd Boyd. He could get in a dogfight, and from the term go, he could start in front of you and end up behind you, guns on you, within about 40 seconds. So when he was studying thermodynamics in a college course, he realized that for an aircraft, the thing to control is altitude, which is speed, which is velocity, which is ability to turn. We can look at that in terms of business, and we can certainly look at it in terms of self-defense with a firearm, armed conflict, or unarmed conflict. So that's the background of the OODA loop.
Okay.
Now you've got OODA in my mind. Oh, damn it.
Let me first of all straighten out my hat. There we go. Let me. And by the way, the person that introduced me to the OODA or the OODA loop is the person who gave me this hat. That would be Kathy Jackson, the corner cat. But I want to ask this. We have people that run the gamut from brand new people who are firearms owners to seasoned pros that consume the show either both on video and on podcast. For the brand new beginning shooter, what is the advantage of trying to learn this OODA or OODA loop? Is there or why not just act as things happen?
There was about a million answers to that. Let me make one that's cogent. When you are in a critical situation, I'll use that term, an uplifted knife in your face, somebody's got a gun, some decision needs to be made on your part quickly to protect innocent life, your own and or others. You don't have the ability to make decisions under stress as well, certainly not taking in new information. By applying the principles of this, I was talking to a nephew of mine, one of Kathy Jackson's boys that's in the military. They use something similar. He's a Cav Scout. The advantage to this is that you can come to that action more quickly rather than reacting to it. We say that action is faster than reaction. This is a mental game. Mm-hmm. This is not just physical skills. It's like you're playing checkers or chess. You're not randomly moving the piece to a colored square. You're thinking and maybe thinking ahead and getting feedback as you observe more stuff and you see what your decision and your action did, and then you redo that. So it's a constant upgrading, but you have to have your head in the game. So when you get to the observe portion, and a lot of the internet warriors will go, well, of course, that's situational awareness.
That was my next question.
You got to be paying attention. So get your head out of your dadgum cell phone. Mm-hmm. You know, don't be a cell phone zombie. If I have to read my cell phone in public, I've got it up here, eye level, rather than bringing my head down to it. You've got to be looking at what's going on, and what you're looking for in the observe phase is anything out of the ordinary. Now, that could be going to, well, we won't say Disneyland now. That could be going to a cool place and looking at the details and going, wow, I'm looking for details, and that's a cool thing. Oh, look over there, there's something cool going on. It's also what's out of place. It's 85 degrees out, and this guy just came into Walmart where I am, and he's wearing a long coat. and he's not moving one of his arms. That's not normal. So you use that situational awareness. Gathering that visual, it could be a smell, it could be a sound, all kinds of stuff, and then you move to orient, and orient's not just physically moving, you've got to interpret what that means. This is where it falls apart for people. They think if I just am aware, I'll see what's going on. What does it mean? What's it telling you? Moving through that loop, and this is where it starts to go apart. So there's a really good example. I can't give attribution to the article I read. I wish I could. It's not my idea. An example is you observe, you're driving along, and you observe the car ahead of you, brake lights flash on.
Yep.
Okay. That's one that we have all practiced, all of us that drive. We all know what to do. We've already known what that means. We know from experience that experience drives this part of the boat. We already know a heuristic response, you could call it. We've already pre-programmed what to do. You're going to hit the brakes. So there's your decide and act. Feedback could be, maybe I don't have enough room to hit the brakes. Then you go back, you observe, do I have room in another lane to pull over? That's a real quick one. Okay, that's something we can relate to, but it starts to get complicated. The opposite end of the spectrum, in this writer's opinion, imagine you're sitting at home and there's something's thrown through the glass and there's a flashbang. You've got this brilliant bazillion candela flash of light, this mega decibel noise. It's extremely disoriented, and while you're figuring it out, whoever threw that thing is going to execute their plan, act faster than you do.
Yep.
Okay. Went to the extreme. You know what to do, you don't know what to do. You can tie that into, we'll use handguns because it's the simplest example. You can tie that in handguns. I've got my traditional YouTube-friendly dummy gun here. Okay? And you experience malfunction. So, bang, bang, click. Okay, I've observed that it's not working. What does that mean I need to do? Does it mean that it rusted? Well, no. I've got a filter in that observation program that I'm running. I've observed, I'm orienting, what's the filter? I can leave out some possibilities. What observations are useful and what aren't? Oh, it's a black gun. It must be defective because it's black, or in this case, red. It doesn't make any difference. You filter out the noise of the information you have. Oh, it's not working. Let's see. Oh, that looks like that's a double feed. That's experience and training. What am I supposed to do with that? You decide, okay, see, I need to unload the gun, load the gun. That worked. There's my feedback loop. That's time consuming. The worst thing would be my gun's not working and you shut down because you don't have the decision-making process. You don't have the training, you don't have the experience, it's totally new, and we see this on the range, and the response is, I stop shooting, hopefully the muzzle's in a safe direction.
Yeah.
Range officer, get a problem, okay? That's what we don't want to happen. Thinking your way through it works, but it takes time, and you can speed that up.
And the other thing I'd like to add to that is you want to get to the A. You don't want to get frozen at D, because if you haven't trained, you might get to, oh, what the heck do I do now? And you're frozen at D. Meanwhile, what you needed to act on has the advantage and is now acting on you or somebody you love, or the bad things continue to happen.
Yep. You want to get to the decision because once you made the decision, it's fairly quick to act. But getting through the orientation is the part that I think is if I had to pick a critical one, you observe, you gather data.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You can only observe so much. We're only human. We're not AI yet. Okay? I need to be able to filter out what's useful and what's not. But how do I do that if nobody has told me, okay, that's experience and training? I orient, I decide what my goals are, because you need to be goal-driven. You need to know where you're going, and then you need to know how to evaluate it. I need, like, not getting shot is a good goal. And that's experience. I know this because I've seen it before in training. Something that we tend to leave out in our world is, I've read it. I read voraciously. Um, Today is Friday, and Greg Elfitz has his knowledge dump, which is just bits and pieces, current events. We've got examples of actual live, real-time video. You know, the robbery at the whatever shop or the assault on the street, and you look at that. I like to look at it with the sound off because I don't have the distractions. 3 or 4 times I'll watch it, then I'll turn the sound on, and just try to observe. And I have the I have the great advantage I can watch it a bunch of times rather than the poor victim.
Yeah.
Well, I can go. This isn't exactly, but it's similar. It narrows down my possibilities. Okay. It's like our reload or our double feed analogy. When you've had the experience and you've practiced it and you recognize it better, you can go past the immediate action drill, tap rack, does it work? Do whatever you've been trained to do for a double feed, which is basically unload the gun, load the gun. If you've really refined that and practiced it, you might be able to say, click, I know that's a double feed because of how it looks, how it feels, how it sounds. Go right to that without even thinking about it. And that's possible too. So the training is not only knowing what to do, but being able to get to that knowledge in your brain quickly.
Right.
It's go ahead.
One of these one of these things I love to do, and this leads right into the OOD loop. One of my favorite games is What Would I Do If? And
yes.
That if you've thought about it before, it's even faster to get through this OODA loop and get to the action from the
absolutely.
design.
Absolutely. You've observed. You've oriented yourself mentally and physically. Orientation is also mindset as opposed to denial. Oh, this is a bad thing happening. I don't like bad things. Clutch your pearls. Scream. Freeze. I've heard people postulate that everybody freezes. It's getting it down to less than a second. That's useful. As opposed to going, I've been here before. I know what to do. Some trainers will say, I knew this would happen one day, rather than going, this can't be happening, except, I knew this would happen one day, and I've got a pretty good idea how to deal with it. Getting past that denial and moving on, being able to recognize it, because once you've got that, you've got a course of action. As you were saying, training is important. It's kind of a heuristic thing. Hick's Law, if you've got more than about 3 choices, you freeze because you're looking for the absolute best one, because that's how we're wired. There's a martial art that I studied, and my niece is studying now. And they have what they call tricks. They are pre-planned responses to an attack. And that sounds a little silly at first, but think about it. As you practice them, you know what it looks like when somebody does that attack. And you observe what they're looking like, and you get the experience visually. You feel the distance, you repeat it, and then you have a pre-programmed response. Okay, you've got a heuristic thing going on where you've narrowed down your choices. There may be some other perfectly good responses, but you've narrowed it down. For instance, if any of you have ever boxed and you see somebody, they're throwing jabs, and they're throwing jabs, but if they're throwing a jab and then doing this, and throwing a jab and then doing this, you start to be paying attention because it's a mind game.
Yep.
You're inside your opponent's mind. Every time he jabs, he drops his hand. What can I do with that? So you've observed, if you've had experience, you've been trained, or you know what to do when somebody drops their hands. You decided what do you usually do that works, and then you act, and you're acting faster than they are because they haven't seen that. That's the kind of thing we're doing. You can apply it to physical conflicts. You can apply it to businesses. You can apply it to making strategies. You can certainly apply it to most any self-defense situation. But it comes down to training, so you know what it looks like, and that's a role play, scenarios. I know what this looks like. I know what it looks like when somebody comes close. I've done a tool or drill. I know that if somebody's a certain distance away and there's obstacles or there's no obstacles and it's dry and clear, whatever, I've got a pretty good idea where the danger point is, at which point I've already decided what my action will be. Okay, if somebody gets within 7 or 8 yards, and remembering the tool or drill, when you do it in practice, everybody knows what's going to happen. So you've already observed, you've been told what the solution is. You don't have to worry about deciding. All you got to do is act. You're at that last stage, ready to go, okay, I'm going to shoot him now. in the real world, you've got to go through those first parts of the OODA loop. You go, oh, there's somebody with a knife. He's running at me. He's too close. What am I going to do? I'm going to shoot him. Or if you've got a better response. It takes time. Anything you can do to shorten that decision making.
And I'll say this as there's something very similar that is taught. Well, that was 22 years ago, was being taught to brand new truck drivers, because 22 years ago I was one. And the difference is, with truck drivers, if you're driving a truck and you screw up, there's a fair to good chance you're going to end up taking a life, and there's an excellent chance that life won't be yours. However, now, if you screw up as a firearms owner, you may or may not end up taking a life. You probably will, if you're screwing up, end up spending some time as the guest of the county or the city or the state, and maybe a great deal of time. I think that complicates our OODA loop a little bit, because you're tempted to look into the far future after settling this issue.
This is where being able to go back and go, oh, I've got to this point in the process, whatever is going on, and a new information has come in. I see something extra. I hear a police siren in the background. Maybe I don't want to have the gun in my hand. All these things, so you're going back and you're constantly, at every point after you observe, you get to orientation. Maybe you've got a new observation. You have to go back and go through that process again. Where you made the decision, something changes. Because remember, the bad guy's not obligated to follow your plan. What is the saying? No plan survives first contact.
Yes.
The fog of war.
Yes.
The bad guy's not obligated to be a willing partner. All those things going on. What if? Here's your game, Paul. The what if game. Awesome game. Since you can't be at class all the time having an instructor throw scenarios with other people. What if somebody breaks into my home? I've got them at gunpoint. They've got a knife. I get them to drop it, and then they get up and run away. What's just changed? No longer a threat. What's my response going to be? Knowing the
knife.
As we always mention, I hope you still have the sound effect.
Yeah.
We mentioned Masada Ayub's class. You don't have the sound effect, you. We take.
I'm sorry. I wasn't expecting his name to come up that quick.
There you go, Uncle Mass. Knowing that things change even when you think they're done. So even when you're done with the act, what's going on? New people arrive. Okay? Observe. New people arriving. Oh, where's my best place to go? Do I have cover close by? Can I get to it? Will it stop a bullet? What angles? Here's one. If you just basically an observation, what's my backdrop? I see a disturbance, or I hear a disturbance over there. I'm observing. I'm orienting. That disturbance is a bad thing. I want to, until I know for sure, reduce my threat level. Let's find some cover. Let's leave. Where's the nearest door?
Yes.
I've been with people, and we have a deal, my wife and I, we need to leave now. And we say it is a definitive, and we have a code word, too. It's an action thing. We do it, and I'll ask questions later. If it turns out it was nothing, I don't care. I didn't know it wasn't nothing. I didn't know it was not a problem.
Susan and I just today, we went to lunch today at a new place neither of us had ever been there before. As we're going in, we're both picking, okay, is there another exit? Yes, there's an exit directly behind where I'm sitting. There's exit directly behind where Susan is sitting. And we oriented so that the majority of the people were coming in from where I was facing, the minority were where she was facing. But yet neither one of us were buried in our cell phones. We enjoyed a pleasant lunch, but we paid attention to what was going on.
Yeah. Diane and I do the same thing, and I'm sure a lot of other folks out there, partners or friends that are in our culture. We look around and see what there is to see. It's almost like she says, you're going to want that chair, so I'll take this one. We'll move the chairs at a table at a restaurant. So we can both watch.
Move the table if you have to.
And, and I'll look around at the people. I just kind of scan them and look around the room, and they've got a special on for lunch. I didn't see that. Gee, that waitress, I've seen her before. She's got good service. I hope we get her. Oh, there's a couple that's acting a little strange. Might want to keep an eye on them. They're probably friendly. They got a little kid. Actually check them. Maybe even, I trained with Roy Miller once. He said, look at people and pretend make up a background story. The object is not to be accurate. The object is to start looking for things, for information when you see people, how they're dressed, how they act, how they speak. Observe. Take the world in and enjoy it. With training, you get the filter, the behaviors, the pre-attack indicators. There's a whole nother show. Decide if you need to act. Do you need to act? How are you going to act? What else do you need to look for? Oh, this rings a bell. I need to look for this other thing that happens in these situations. It comes down to training, which is getting experience deliberately. Experience you've had, vicarious experience, the reading the article, the listening to the lectures, the reading the books, the looking at YouTube videos of actual critical incidents, and of how would you have done this, realizing you're not victim blaming. You have the advantage and the luxury of time and distance and being able to replay this in the safety of your own home. So don't feel guilty about it. But notice how quickly it happens, and I would bet money that none of those people that are victims on these videos had gotten up in this morning and said, yep, I'm going to be a victim today.
Yeah.
Realize that it can happen right now, real fast. It's a come-as-you-are party. And you don't get an invitation. You don't get to pick the time, the place, or the circumstances. What you can pick in your preloading of these good decisions, your predetermined responses, the practice working with your partner, knowing what to look for, knowing what to do about it, is to make sure you have your emergency rescue equipment with you. That's one less thing to worry about. I know what you've got on your waist because I saw you when you sat down. As I was observing, okay? You can probably bet I have something similar. Diane's outside. She's my outer layer of security. We live a mile from the nearest town. It's 650 people. I've got a 25-minute response time from the local sheriff's office. God bless them. Good folks up there. I'm ready. If there's a noise, somebody comes through a window or a door, or Diane makes some strange noise, I've already got that in place, which means I have the beginning of a plan. I have my go-to. Okay, I've got other things in place. But I don't have to stop, gee, where did I leave my gun? Should I get it? It's there. An example of minimizing the number of decisions you need to make. Consistently have it. I know where my gun is because I always carry it in the same place. It's not like, oh, what gun am I carrying today and where is it?
Yeah.
The consistency helps. I have a lot of heartburn when people say, gee, what carry gun shall I have today? I'm going to rotate. Today's Wednesday. I usually carry my 1911 on Wednesday. I admire you having different platforms. I question the wisdom of constantly changing the balance, weight, recoil characteristics, trigger characteristics of your firearm.
I'm going to say something I was once guilty of, but no longer am. But if you have a carry gun, make that your carry gun. And I did for a while. We have 2 Glocks. We have three Glocks. We've got a car. We've got a couple Smith & Wessons for handguns in the house. And for a while, I carried my Smith & Wesson and trained with my Glock because I'd always trained with my Glock. I no longer do that. I carry my car. I practice with my car. The next time I take training, I'll take training with my car. I become absolutely, positively, intimately familiar with the handgun that would get us knocked off YouTube if I were to pull it out of my waistband right now. But I know that thing backwards, forwards, and sideways to the point where I don't know that I'd want to ever go back to Smith & Wesson other than for sometimes at the range.
As an instructor, and any gun enthusiast would be the same, I can run pretty much any handgun or rifle or shotgun or whatever somebody puts in front of me. My specialty is handguns. but I tend to carry one of two types. I carry, if I'm carrying a striker fire one, I'm partial to the Smith & Wesson M&P just because it's my hand. Or I'll carry a 1911. I will switch off depending on if I'm going to a state that doesn't permit the magazine capacity that I'm afforded with the M&P. I've got more traditional single stacks. But if I've been carrying one and shooting it and going to something I haven't shot for a while, if I don't get to the range, at least I've got a couple of 3 days of dry fire just to stimulate that neuromotor pathway that this is what I'm in. So when I grab it, I'm good to go. The gun's in the same place it always is. I tend to carry on the belt the same place. My holsters are the same configuration. So it's not a lot of difference. It's consistency.
Yep.
Consistency with what you do. Sometimes it can be boring, but again, when you get to that D part of the OODA loop, the decision part, it cuts down the number of choices. And remember, Hicks' law says more than 3. When in danger or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout. And time is not a luxury you have. Remember, you're managing your time with the OODA process better than the other guy.
Yep.
Okay? You're inside his head. I know what he's going to do because I know what it looks like when he's in that position. These are his possibilities. This is what he can't do. I'm going to use that to my advantage. That's why when I was a younger martial artist, I could get the younger guys and I could spar with them. I was slower. But I could beat them because I knew what they were going to do before they knew what they were going to do.
Tom, we are flat out of time. We're over time. So
we did it again.
We did it again. And we knew deciding OODA loop was gonna be a little bit longer than 30 minutes. So let's talk about Firearms Academy of Seattle. Do you have any notes in front of you? What's coming up that people want to maybe look into?
Again, I'm going to refer you to the website. We have got in the next couple of months, we've got Masada Yub coming out for Mag 40 class in July. Thank you, Uncle Mass, for coming out again. We have got Jared Reston coming this year. We've got John Farnham coming at the end of May. We've got so many guest instructors coming out, in addition to our own, here's a word I don't get to use much, plethora. It means a lot to say that.
It does. Of
classes, everything from introductory, this is the lever that makes the bullet come out the hole in the front, to force-on-force search houses, rifles to distance, rifles close by, all kinds of cool stuff. www.firearmsacademy.com.
And they can also sign up for the Masada Yub group or the other John Farnham, the other classes right from there as well, right?
Yes.
Very cool. Tom, we do have to go. Thank you again, man. On my end, that does wrap up this part of the broadcasting week. We do have one more show coming tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Central Time, is going to be the Weekly Bullet. Alex Uli's joining me. I'll have other co-hosts coming in. I'm not quite sure yet who it is, but we'll get it figured out. We'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time. Until then, everybody, podcast listeners, thanks for listening. Viewers, thanks for watching. Thank you, everybody, for commenting, and we'll see you next time.